and welcome. This is a new video. I'll be talking to something what I still don't understand properly, but we were talking about car setups and how to make your car a little bit more stable, more agile, and matching to your car style. Or and I show you what you never see on my streams, because I'm not streaming this on VR, but usually this is what I'm saying. So this is my Porsche, and usually when I do my setups, I'm going to back to the garage, going to setups. So first, my start point is always the stock aggressive. So, and when I drive in the Porsche, of course, I'm doing 2, 3, 4 laps, and I'm setting up the temperature to 27.5. If you want to be a little bit faster for Monza, it's 28. If you want to be a little bit more stable, it's 27, but 27.5 is always good, because during the sessions, if the temperature is going up, your tire temperature will be rising, plus your pressure will be rising. Or if you using the curbs and up using your car, you'll be losing some pressure, so you will be staying in this 27 to 28 psi range. The tool camber and caster base setup from the stock aggressive, it's quite okay, so I didn't touch this. You can change it later, but at the moment the base setup, I never touch this. I see the point when sometimes it's good, but usually I'm leaving this on. So because we're using the application called Zotac Telemetry, you need like 20-25 or more laps. So it's collecting all of your data, your tire pressure, everything to your file. And when an external real life used telemetry application in Zotac or any other telemetry, you can open this file and you can read the data. So if you put it to 100, it will be 4 hours of, or 2, maybe 3 hours of race will be captured every laps. So I will show how that it looks later, but yeah, 20, 25, 30 is enough. And when you're reaching the 30 laps and you're still doing circles, they just start overwriting the old tracks. And every time when you're coming back to the pit and you're leaving the server, they start a new file. So if you're doing like a practice session, back to the pit, leaving the server, back to the pit, leaving the server, you will have lots of telemetry data. Traction control is based on always based on the laps. If you driving on wet, so if you just go back here and checking, if you go to wet setup, the ABS and traction control is going up. But if you driving stock, maybe traction control will go a little bit lower or higher if you want to be a more stable car. But usually I'm driving in traction control 2. ABS is 3 or 4, depends on the car. So you start driving the car when you see the tire is making a squeaky noise, and you just making flat spots on your tire. Maybe it's good to raise a little bit your ABS. And if you're sliding in corners and you cannot control, you have lots of oversteer, understeer, and you're struggling with the car, and you're in the middle of the longer stint, you just raised a little bit of the traction control. But usually before races I'm doing like 5-10 laps, and that will be there helping a lot. Coming to options and audio, yeah, don't need them. So if you're going back to the setup, so basically every time when you change something and you're going back to aggressive, this will override the setup. So first you're selecting aggressive, and after you just going back to the current setup, so you never go back to the stock aggressive, or all of your settings will be lost. So we have telemetry. We'll set this to 30 laps. And in fuel, usually the fuel savings and the fuel calculation and the balance for IO is it's a little bit weird. So basically in here you will have a fuel load test, and this fuel load test and your fuel in the car is not 100% matched, but based on you just set the fuel what you want to use, go out, do your circles, capturing the telemetry data. So since the last update, the good thing is if you set up your tires, for example 35 psi, I don't know why you want to do that, but you just one click and you have the same psi here, so you don't need to manually set up every time one by one all of your tire pressures. So we're going with .3, .9, so this will be our tire pressure. We just copy it here. I'm not racing in this this video, so I'm just showing how I'm setting up the car. So you need to make sure when you creating a stint for yourself for like a 3 hour 6 hours endurance race, you have number of pit stops. You can load back the first pit or the second and third and anytime, but the tire set what the pit stop number 1 is using is always the same. So if I do first pit stop, I'm using tire set 3, second pit stop I'm using tire set 4, third I'm using 5th, so the tire set will be changing. But if I'm running out and I'm coming to the pit in 4th time, they're going back to 3rd. So you need to be careful what you're doing, and this is the same with the brakes. So you have the front brakes, what is brake number 1. So the brake pads 1 is okay for 3 hours, the brake 2 will be 12 hours, and the brake 3 will be a little bit longer, like 16, 18, 20 hours. We're using brake 2 for longer stints because it's stable, easy to control. In 24 hours we'll be planning to change from brake 2 to new brake 2. You have the hardware here, disk where everything. So you're using your car, everything is fine, you're setting up your car and you're starting with 120 liters, and for the first pit you're going for 120 liters, for the second pit you're going to 120 liters again, and the third pit you forgot to set the fuel. But you feel in the first stint everything was fine, the tire pressure was good. You change the car, the next driver said the tire pressures are bad in 2, and you want to load back the original settings. So for before you're doing the driver swap or going back to the pit, you're just selecting pit 1, but in the game on the left side menu you need to change the tire set manually. So you will see on the tire set a white circle, that means the tire what you will be changing back to your car, it's a brand new tire. And if you see a black circle, the tire is already used. This is important for races where you are limited to 5 sets or 6 sets or 7 sets of tires. So maybe on quali you want to use exactly the same tires for quali, so you don't want to use always the brand new tires. And in 6 hour races where you have 5 tire sets, maybe sometimes you have a tire set what's only half used because you used for the shortest stint. Maybe you want to put back that tire set number 6 again. So this tire set is it's a little bit more attention to detail. You need to be more careful how you're using it, but yeah, you can preset what tire set you want to use it in the first and the second, and you can go up to 30 pit stops. In the pit stop you can set up if you want to use dry tires or wet tires. If using wet tires, the wet tires will be a brand new tire. And in tire sets for dry you have 1 to 50, but this can be limited by series based on the server settings. And the other thing is, if you're doing a long stint in the beginning and you want to use the brake pad 1, you need to be careful because by default the brake pads from the pit strategy is always 2. So if you have a fast race, what you have for example for RCI, when you need to drive for 75 minutes, you start on brake 1, you don't want to do anything, just 120 liters plus 10 liters extra. So you will go to the pit, you will have 10 liters of extra fuel, so you will stopping for 5 seconds and you realize your pit stop takes 50 seconds. The reason is because you forgot to change to using the same brake pads and you didn't take to don't change brakes. So this is one additional things what you can mess up during the races. And if you see here in the second, you need to click through all of the pressures to have the same pressure. And if I go and change just for here, because I know this will be a little bit later, maybe I will expecting a temperature drop on the track, I will use the higher pressure for 9, and this is for every pit stop. You can calculate it. Usually we using pit stop 1 and we manually changing the tire sets, but this is up to you and your preferences. But this is very easy to see. So if we go in here, so you can see if they have any flat spots, if they have any blister, or they have grain. And the other thing is tire wear. So when you're doing camber and caster and toe, you can see the left side, the center, and the right side of the tire wear by millimeter. If the tire is above 1.5, it's still usable for race. It's not best, but still okay. So you don't have puncture, and sometimes you just lost the pressure, because this can be a full 0 psi. You have a puncture and the tire is gone. So for mechanical grip, the first thing when I'm doing here, the first thing I'm changing the steer ratio for 12. So the steer ratio doesn't really change anything on the car. This is most likely your personal preference. This means if you're steering your car and you're turning left or right, how much steering movement you need for the same amount of turning direction, so turning percentage. So basically this is just when you go into Monza and you have the first chicane, if you have this on 15, you almost need to lift and change your grip on the steering wheel, because you will crossing your arms. If you're going to 12, you can do it without releasing the steering wheel. So this is why I'm using 12. Some of our drivers using 15, and some of them is using even 11 and lower. This is based on cars, but some of the car acting differently, and some of the GT4 cars has like 16 to 22 steering ratios. So basically I'm using the second lowest what is possible. So when I'm coming here to bump stop range, this side I'm not really touching, because I still don't understand how does it working. But yeah, this is one of the things what you can manage, and this is when I started the video. I still don't know what I'm talking about, but I'm talking about anyway. And anti-roll bar for the front, this will be helping you with understeer and oversteer, and the same as for the differential plus the anti-roll bar in the back. So this is the two what I'm usually changing, but this will be showing on Zotac based on what I'm changing and what graphs you need to check if you change something here. The golden rule for changing any settings: try to change only one on maximum 2 things on the car. Do some laps, check your data again, go back to Zotac, and change the next things and the next things until you feel comfortable in the car. So setting up a car, it sometimes takes like 10 minutes and everything feels perfect, and sometimes you're fiddling with hours and you still feel something need to be changed. So the only exception is you set up all of your tire pressure. This is 4 tires in the same time, and at the same time when I changing the front brakes to 1, this is always just give you more stopping power if you have a less than 2-hour race. And the other things what I'm always changing the steering ratio, because this is I know what I'm expecting, and this is the base what I'm always using. The brake bias, this is how much front or rear brake power you will have. It's usually I'm using 53, depends of the car and depends on the track, but yeah, it's based on if I feel the car is not stopping fast enough, or the car is using too much braking power, and I'm changing the brake bias. But usually 53, 52, what I'm get used to it. It's based on your your car, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you go below like 46 or something, the car will be a little bit tend to oversteer in strong brakings, but yeah, it depends on every car, and some of the car has a way different brake bias. If you go to Reddit or you start looking for, each car has a different brake bias what you want to use, and the rear end cars, so rear engine and mid engine cars, are 55-ish, and it's different for front engine car, but I'm not driving front engine car, so I'm not really changing anything for them. So dampers, and this is what I learned today. So this is the most important thing. You will have bump, fast bump, rebound, and fast rebound for each suspension. So bump is when you go in and your suspension will be pressed together, and the fast bump is when you're hitting the curb. So everything what is happening in the road, like a small pothole or anything, it's based on the bump settings, and the fast bump is based on if you hit a curb, and rebound is how much quicker the suspension is coming back to the same position. If you have Zotac telemetry system or any other telemetry, they will have a very nice curve what you're looking for, and this curve will be the important things what you need to aim to get a very stable car. So I'm aiming to have a stable car because we're doing endurance races. I'm not setting up the car for quali sessions, but usually the fast bump and the fast rebound is when you hit the curb, and if you have this set correctly, you are much more likely can hit the curbs without the car will be unsettled or crazy, and they're trying to kill you. With these settings, plus with the front and rear anti-roll bar and some aero, you can manage the car to be a less oversteering. And yeah, this I will show you, because if you using Zotac, in Zotac you will see very easily how this is affecting your car. And if you go to aero, this is the most important things what you can see. Sometimes you have cold or very hot brakes. This is based on the condition, if it's wet, if it's dry, if it's optimum, what type of brake pads you're using, and what's your brake ducts. So the brake ducts is some flap what you can open or closed, and this is heating or cooling down your brakes. So if your brake duct is open, you will get much more wind to much more air catching and cooling your brakes. This can be very useful in very hot temperature. So if your track temperature is like 50 or 45 plus, you need to open the brake ducts, or you will be overheating your brakes and you will be losing braking power. You're losing braking power. A shorter braking distance is just a dream for you from there, and you will be slower than everyone else. So if you open the brake ducts, you will have more cooling for the brakes. You keep it in the optimum position. So majority of the race, your brake temperature will be a greenish, and never go to orange or red, and never go to very cold blue. And this is what you need to aim for. And if you have a very cold race, like you're starting in midnight and you have only 1 hour race, and the tire temperature, the track temperature is like 10 C or lower, or even 15 or lower, you need to close the brake duct, so you're not using the cold air to cool down your brakes. So you will be keep your brakes in optimum, so it will be kept in a green position. So ride height is the other things what you can change. Basically the stock balance 7.9 is a good starting point. If you start changing the ride height from here, you will see the balance will be changed for the car. 69 if I remember, maybe not. yeah, 66. So if you have a very bumpy track and you have rain and your right height in the front is not high enough, your front splitter can be go underwater and you will be on very funny moments in the trains. So in that situation will be a little bit bad. And the same things with the wings. So if you have a rear wing, when the wind is coming and the air is start pushing down for your car, if you have higher wing, they're pushing down the car's end, so you will have much more grip. You can control the car, you can accelerate faster, but they generating so much drag, your car will be slower in the long races, longer straight lines. So you need to find a balance here to have a least drag but a controllable car. And the front splitter is the same. You can use front splitter and you will have a little bit more additional weight on your front tire. So if you feel the front is too light and your car is just start flying away and you cannot control it, and you feel when you're accelerating the front is just uncontrollable, maybe you need to add some additional splitter to the front. So this is the settings with very basic terms, how I understand it, and I'm 100% made some mistakes here, and I'm talking about nonsense. But the most important things what you need to check every time when you're doing the settings is the track temperature. So you can have the most perfect settings and your tire pressure is spot on and everything is working fine, but maybe that settings is not working at all because your track temperature is wrong. So for this reason, every time when you're creating a setup, you need to justify this is a quali setup, which type of car you're using, and you need to give some statements. So this is for dry, and I'm always using the track temperature, so it's 29. So this is a quali for this car, dry setup. You can use here the track if you want to share it with others, and if it's a race setup, you're using this. So basically on race setup, you creating your car and preparing it for maximum 3 laps, for quali. And if it's a race setup, you making the car to be fast for or consistent and drivable for a long time. So when you save it, you will say you will have a PoReCAD setup, and this PoReCAD setup is good for 29 Celsius track, and this will be a good starting point. So if you join back to the same server and the track temperature will be 35, you know you need to lower the PSIs because the tire will be a little bit hotter, so you will have more pressure. If this will be a colder tire, you need to increase the PSI. So this is a small trick to save yourself some time. Plus, when you start using and naming what is working for every car in the same way, this will be saves you lots of time. So to go back to telemetry, this will be a very quick telemetry overview. I'm not a professional race engineer, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I kind of understand what I'm looking for and how can I utilize this tool to makes my life a little bit easier, and my lap times a little bit better, and my car is more stable than usual. So when you finished your ACC driving sessions, you're going to your documents, Assetto Corsa /Motec. You will see lots of telemetry data here. If you turned on, as I started on the electronics, the telemetry. So when you have this telemetry data, you can select this is 42 total laps, this is 29 total laps, and they shows your fastest laps. So let's select this file, and let's select this file. I try. Come on. Oh, it's already opened. It's fine. I have 14 laps of spa. So let's open it. And if you see, I have lots of files, and I can check this is created in this day. If you want, you can move this a little bit away, right? And you can see what's the fastest lap, what's everything. But at the moment we are interested on one track. It's a spa because we're doing a 24-hour spa and we are working on a setup. So the first thing what you have the fastest lap selected. By default, it's when you're loading any setup, they always selecting your fastest lap. You have three different kind of selection. You have the original one. This will give you this line. You can select one second one and the third one. So if you have your fast lap and you have one lap and you struggle, for example, I have a 24.15 lap here, and I have a 28 lap. So if you see, this is just the first tab. You can compare your speed per corner, per everything, but you don't know what's going on. And where it's happening, you can see oversteer, understeer. So everything what is oversteer, it will be positive. If it's understeer, it will be below. So this is a very understeer setup. On Porsche, this is what you're looking for because the car is very oversteery. The engine just always want to overtake the front. So this is a very stable setup for the Porsche. It's much easier to control your oversteer than the understeer. It's for me. And you can see which corner, what you're doing, and what's the speed difference. So you can check the G's. I'm not using this at all, but you can check how much G-force you have the car, how much you lat and load. So you can check the G's. I'm not really using this. This is like driver conversion. If you have two different drivers, you can see when you're braking more and when you're using more throttle, and you can zoom in and you can check the section what you're looking for. Wheel speed, this is per wheel, so you can see what the front left speed, what's the front left speed for the time 1 and the time 2. And this is the most important part, the understeer and oversteer. So basically this gives you the steering angle. So maybe you are oversteering because the driver is stupid. In my case, it's 99%. This is why it's happening. And you can see the car is always understeer because this is below the 0. And this part, you can utilize the car and you can see what's happened. And when you going back to the original settings in ACC and you start checking the front aerial anti-roll bar and you checking the wings, this is how you can control oversteer. So if you have lots of understeer, you can change the settings to be this bar a little bit higher. And if I checking, this is when I messed up my lap and I have lots of oversteer, but this is snap oversteer when you're not controlling your car. So this is when you zoom out, you can see all of the laps and these dotted lines. This is when you have you're crossing the finish line. And up here you can move your time frame. So we are back in one lap. And you can move this bar somehow, yeah, here. And in this case, when you're moving your bar, it will be showing the data. What's the actual oversteer percentage? This is what you're using first. And RPM histogram, this is just how much RPM you have. If you short shifting, you can see it here. Usually I'm not using this because you cannot change the gear ratio on ACC. On Assetto Corsa you can, but in ACC not. And this will be the most important things what you can use. And this is the suspension histogram. So when you remember when we went back to the mechanical grip part on the ACC, so you need to see something like this. When you have a curve what is coming up, there we have like a very high end and coming down, and in here when we are in low bump, I have this small jump here. So I need to start compare this with my fast lab, and yeah, I need to start working to lower a little bit the percentage for the low bump, so I can smooth this out to have a better graph. So when you have this suspension histogram, I want to see a same here, and I don't want to see any kind of jumps. And this is when you need to start working to smooth out your car suspension. And the other things what you need to always aiming, the front need to be higher than the rear in the Porsche, because the Porsche is very heavy in the back, so you need a little bit more stiffer suspension to deal with the engine weight. And yeah, this when you can create this kind of curves, and let me see if I have any kind of stupid ones. Oh, I think I'm using the same settings. Oh, this one. So this is a wrong one. So if you see the aim, what we're going for, you need to be below 6 or 7 maximum, and in here you need to be 6 or 5. And in this setup, before I loaded the setup and I just did some stupid laps, I have maximum suspension travel. So this is when you need to start working on your setup, and this is a better one when you start working in. I'm not 100% sure what was the setup here and what's the setup difference between this and the other one, but usually you need to look for something like this. Suspension travel, I'm not using this at all, but you can see if your ride height in the front is lower than 0, you're scraping the floor, and my car is never going below 40 millimeters. And that's it. I think I'm mistaking this one, but I think this is suspension. Oh, sorry, this is the suspension travel on the front, and this is the ride height on the front and the rear. Front left, rear left. Yeah. So, and in here you can see which part of the track you will have some issues with the ride height. The next is rake. I'm not using this. Tire detail, I'm not using it. Tire pressure. So this is good if you have a long stint. So I went back to the pit here, and if you see when I was in the pit, I'm just standing there and talking with the guys. So my tire temperature is and the tire pressure just went down. So when I started to race, my tire temperatures went up a little bit, and my tire temperature and pressure just slowly go down like in a straight line, and you can see per tire which tire you need to change the tire pressure. So if you're not doing anything, just start loading Zotac and do some laps. You're not going back to setups and reading what was your tire temperature. In here you can still see how much pressure you need to add to the tire to after 5 laps to reach 27.5, because I think I have too many laps selected. Yeah. So in here you can see you can change the tire temperature and everything to tire pressure to have that 27.5 what we discussed earlier. Tire temperature, you can check it if you're overheating, you can check it if you're overheating in a corner. This is one thing what you need to check if you're worrying about it. Usually, if your tire pressure is good, your tire temperature will be in between 80 and 90, so your tire temperature will be good. Some of the races, when you have much different surface temperature, this can be an issue, but usually you need to worry about the PSI and the temperature will be follows. Track report, and this is one very good thing. So I have this 221.523 or 520, and I have the other one. So when I start pressing play here, I can see corner by corner what is my car, what I'm doing, when I'm reaching which corner, where is my position on the track, and I can see the fastest lap is already 5 seconds ahead. And if I'm spinning somewhere, I can see which corner I'm spinning. So you can watch back and you can see where you're losing or gaining time. I think you still add more details to this. At the moment, I'm just using visualization to see if I'm faster, but these two can be used better when you're adding like a braking force or throttle control. But at the moment, it's not added to the map. And this is the other things. You can check sector times per lap, and they will shows which sector times. It's not in-game sector, but this is per straight and per turn. You can see where you are faster, where you are slower than before. And yeah, this is one other tools what you can utilize for yourself. And you can check my expected fastest lap is 221.118, and my fastest lap that I did is 221.5. So I'm still losing somewhere for half second on the track, but this is this was a practice when I started to use the car with 120 liters of fuel and check how much laps I can squeeze out from the Porsche on Spa when I doing my kind of race pace. And if you see in lap 6, lap 10 and lap 11, this was the laps when I was fast. But I believe this 8 minutes what I have here, I went back to the pit and I started my long stint here. So this is why my lap time's a little bit dropped. But you need to analyze your own data and find it what you can do. And this is a very helpful tool. I'm not saying this is an easy to understand tool. I'm not saying this is 100% perfect and correct what I'm saying. This is how I'm using it, and for me, I believe it's helpful. And I just stop talking because this will be already a 40 minutes video and nobody will watch. But thank you for watching. Thank you for being amazing and awesome. Stay safe, stay cool, and see you next time. Cheers.